Am I the butthole for being too honest about why I don't drink? I'm 33 and I had a serious drinking problem since a young age. My dad was an alcoholic, so booze never lacked in our house. It nearly killed me when I was only 27 and was in the ER for alcohol poisoning. It was too close a call, and after that things had to change. With my wife's support, I went to rehab, and proud to say I've been sober 5.5 years. My flatmate invited our friends over yesterday. It was 7 of us in total, including his friend, Mark. I've met Mark maybe 3 to 4 times over the last 2 years, and while we're friendly, I honestly don't know him that well. But you can tell he's a party guy. Likes to get loud, take shots, makes gross comments sometimes, etc. Mark brought several cases of beer and a bottle of tequila with him, so everyone was drinking and having a good time. Mark kept offering me drinks the entire night, which I'd politely decline. It's like he made it his personal mission to get me to drink by egging me on, saying every time he sees me I'm either drinking a soda/water and it's okay to let loose sometimes. He resorted to teasing me into drinking, calling me princess. I don't know what that had to do with not wanting to drink. All my friends there knew what I was like before, how bad my drinking was, so they kept trying to steer the conversation so he'd forget about me. But every now and then he'd hand me a shot glass or a beer and would not let it go, even after telling him yet again that I didn't want to drink. My wife became uncomfortable with his behavior. I think she was worried I'd actually drink. She grabbed the shot glass from me, dumped it in the sink, and told him to stop it already. He looked between us and grinned like he understood now. Mark joked that maybe we should get my wife drunk first, then that'll get her to loosen up the leash she has on me. I'll admit, that made me see red. I got in his face and told him, actually I don't drink because last time I did I almost effing died, so unless you want me puking everywhere and having seizures, you should shut up and leave my wife out of this. Wiped the smile off him real quick and he apologized. The rest of night went on and he finally left me alone. Our flatmate did confront me in the morning because he thinks I was too honest with Mark, and it wasn't his fault, he didn't know, he was just joking around and I made him feel bad. Our other friends agree he was being too pushy and deserved being told off. My wife agrees, so he's the only one right now that's taking Mark's side. He said I could have ignored him until he gave up instead of bringing up an uncomfortable truth from my past. Now yes, I could have just told Mark the truth without full details, but felt that's none of his business and a no should have been enough. I only got carried away when he decided to include my wife in his jokes. So yes, I am wondering if I was a bit of an a-hole for what I told him instead of keeping the peace. NTA. No is a full sentence. Mark was being pushy and in butthole. Peer pressure isn't cute when you're teenagers, and it's especially ridiculous as adults. He disrespected you by badgering you to drink, and he disrespected your wife. No one needs a reason to not do something, but since Mark clearly wasn't going to stop pushing you, you were well within the right to tell him exactly why you didn't want to drink. Also, it's basic courtesy not to push someone to drink. They could be pregnant, they could be on medication, they could be an alcoholic, they could be driving, etc., and even if they weren't and just didn't feel like it, they don't want to. Mark is the and original post is NTA, at all. This is my favorite example. It uses T for an example of consent for sex, but really, it works for anything. YouTube link. This used to be on my clipboard. Thank you for giving this thread this beautiful video. Honestly, that video is fantastic. As a British person, the use of tea as a metaphor is hilarious, but gets the point across so incredibly well. Op is of course not the butthole. Till was actually a sexual predator, web link. Go on, you know you want one father. It's got cocaine in it. No, not cocaine, what do I mean now? Raisins. I can tell you right now that every woman in Ireland above the age of 50 turns into Mrs. Doyle when it comes to tea. And on that note, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. Is that a masturbation joke? I was thinking that too. I'm fine with the Thames Valley Police media guy cracking off a crafty one after making a video, but did he really need to tell us he was going to do so? I've been meaning to add this video to my save list, but I couldn't remember it. Thanks for sharing it and letting me save it. That video's hilarious. It was shown to my basic training flight during our sexual assault prevention class, and tea became a bit of a running joke after that. That video gave me a good laugh, but also very informative and super simple for people who seem to get confused about consent, which should not be confusing at all and require a video. Love it. I love this video as well, Consent Explanation for Dummies. This was brilliant. NTA. Makes me think it's Mark who is the alcoholic. I've met many addicts who crave validation, and find the idea of others willingly choosing not to partake is threatening the fantasy that it's the best possible way of life. As someone who doesn't drink and never has, I get this a lot. The amount of people who seem to feel threatened or judged simply because I chose not to drink and they do is astounding. I've had people get openly upset with me over the fact that I don't drink. I've had family members pressure me for years to drink just this one time. They can't comprehend that I have no desire to drink. They assume I'm resisting some kind of temptation. They can't reason that I don't need alcohol to lower my inhibitions. That if I want to do something, I'll do it without the crutch of being drunk. I call it ruining the average. They drink. They drink a lot. They drink every weekend to excess, and hey, on special occasions under the week, too. And it's fine. Everybody drinks. Drinking is part of being social, and drinking to get drunk is part of party culture. And if they are drinking a bit more frequently, a bit more heavily than others, well, that's just them being the heart of the party animal, the guy or gal who knows how to have a good time. They are just on the higher end of the average. And then you, or I, come in. And we don't drink. And we don't drink despite not having a legitimate reason, like being the designated driver, like being pregnant, like being of a prohibitive faith. We just don't want to, and don't really feel we have to have fun, either. And that's terrible. For them. Because suddenly here we are ruining the average by introducing the concept of not drinking. Suddenly not everybody is drinking, unless they are forced to not drink by circumstance. The low end isn't getting slightly drunk anymore, with the higher end being blackout drunk. Suddenly the low end is being sober. And in this new spectrum, their excess looks all the more extreme. Because when there's the option to not drink, isn't there also the option to drink less? Because if you introduce the concept of being social and having fun without being drunk, doesn't that put into question a culture that insists that being social means you have to always be drinking at social outings? Because if it's possible and enjoyable to not drink, is their copious consumption of alcohol less lovable character trait and more indication of, perhaps, a problem? And that's where that missionary zeal comes from. We have to be converted, we have to be brought around, we have to become the everybody that is drinking. Because hoping to bully people into being part of the status quo, to validate drinking culture, is easier than to take a good, critical look at one's own behavior. The crazy thing I learned when I started frequenting sobriety communities is how many people don't drink at all. The median is just about 0 per week. I thought what I convinced myself was 20-ish drinks per week was only a bit above average. Turns out even that would have been a lot. Turns out my actual 50-ish was a crap ton. Web link. See, I must be honest, I used to drink a lot, but it never bothered me that others weren't or were drinking less. I would do what made me happy and they would do the same. It was the beer fear or alcohol shame I hated. The fact the next day I had to make sure with everyone I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't. One of my friends said the only annoying thing about you drinking is that you don't remember if you did anything bad the next day and felt the need to check every time. You never had, but it got a bit exhausting. Thank you for this. I thought I was very much in the minority, as a non-drinker. It's interesting how much our culture paints drinking as being more common than it is. It's also interesting that we have so many liquor stores, but they're really being supported by a small percent of the population. Kind of distressing, really. That's a good exponentially rising graph you got there. This is a great description of it because it also applies to those of us who do drink but not often or a lot. My ex had a friend who I couldn't stand because he was constantly trying to fill your glass before it was even close to empty. Every time he finished his drink he'd refill everyone's, even though I nurse my drink so I only have had maybe a third of mine tops. Pretty sure he didn't want us, or even him, to be able to count drinks because we were blowing his average. Same. It's why I stopped going to the bar. Like, I'm out here to dance and have a good time, but somehow me not getting blackout drunk is upsetting for some people. But they're still better than the people who would just assume that I was happy to babysit their drunk ass every single time. Also, they feel that non-drinkers are judging them. It's true that when you don't drink, you can see very clearly just how stupid drink can make you. I do have more than the occasional glass of wine. My excuse is that I'm French/joke. This is a bang-on description of a former friend of mine who was, and most likely still is, an epic alcoholic. It was sad because I really do care for her, but I wasn't willing to endanger myself for her. That part that you said about resisting temptation hit home for me. Whenever people hear of a religious person, particularly a Muslim, choosing not to drink, they feel distance from them or are super curious and sometimes weirded out as to why you'd stick to that rule and choose not to drink ever, like I don't have to validate my reasons or choices for anyone, and you're not going to help me get out of the cage of religion by showing me or telling me how good drinking, eating pork or whatever else feels. People should just respect other people's choices, whatever their reasons for them are. If they don't affect you or your freedom, they're none of your concern. Yeah, I always reply that I drink as much as I want. That's none. I just don't see the appeal. I do rape all I want. And the amount I want is 0. And I do murder all I want, and the amount I want is 0. Penn Jillette on not needing religion to be moral in this context. Abstaining from alcohol for non-religious reasons isn't self-flagellation to break out of. No kidding. I'm not even tempted to drink. Drunk people are idiots, and I have no desire to wake up in my own vomit. Bacon at least looks like it might taste good. Beer smells like pee. It might, but honestly the smell of bacon and ham nauseates me. Embarrassed smiley face. Either way, everyone is entitled to their own choices. And like some people choose to give up meat and dairy no matter how good they taste to some of us choose to give up drinking and pig byproducts. Just a suggestion, don't speak of it as giving up. That implies that it's something that you like but are exercising willpower to not eat or drink or participate in. Rather, state it as I prefer not to. This makes it harder for people to argue with you, since personal taste is not susceptible to argument. De gustibus non disputandum est. Ditto here. I don't drink alcohol mostly because I don't like the taste. Beer tastes like yeasty raw bread dough. Other liquors have a horrible taste, even mixed in with fruity or minty things to make them taste good. I don't even like wine because it has a bitter taste. This has annoyed people to no end throughout my adult life. When I politely decline a drink and have a soft drink or water instead, it's like everyone else has to question or have an opinion on my choice. What? Why not? Oh come on, just one beer/glass/drink won't hurt you. It's okay to loosen up a bit. And now I'm the talk of the gathering because everyone has a personal goal to get Scarlett to drink alcohol. I get the same thing with my food choices. I have several food sensitivities related to my seasonal allergies, plus I'm very picky. When I'm offered a food I'm supposed to avoid or don't like, I politely decline, and then starts the same discussion. What? Why not? What do you mean you don't like? Insert XYZ food? Just try a bite, you'll love it. Irritation ensues and then increases the more I decline, and a previous non-issue is now a huge issue that involves everyone. Why do people get so offended when others decline to eat or drink something they don't like? Hello fellow supertaster. Yes. And then it's 20 people telling you for hours about how that food you said you don't like really is amazing, you just haven't had it made right yet. Like, thanks butthole, the last 30 times I tried it and didn't like it, they said that too. But sure, you obviously know me better than I do. NTA. The only person who made Mark look bad was Mark, and he should be embarrassed by his behavior. My partner is an ex-alcoholic and I have never heard her have to explain more than, no thanks I don't drink. It's common decency to just back off if someone says no to alcohol/cigarettes/drugs/anything. Op's flatmate said he could have just ignored Mark. But that's exactly what original post did, repeatedly, and Mark kept pushing it. Op's response was completely reasonable. Op's flatmate is a spineless coward. Mark probably likes Op's flatmate because he's an enabler who excuses Mark's bullcrap. And he should rethink who he is friends with. I can't believe he actually took Mark's side on this. Well, they had a party in the middle of a pandemic, so the whole lot might need some examining, original post and all. You are absolutely right, and the conflict avoidance of the others in this situation baffle me. After the first few times, they should have helped quickly shut him down. I don't understand gently guiding the conversation away from Mark's harassment. Or ignoring the stupid princess nickname. The guy sounds annoying as F. Also, Mark seems like the kind of person to spike ops drinks so they end up consuming alcohol. His roommate also said he didn't know, but he knew that original post didn't want to drink, and that's all he effing needed to know. I think the flatmate could have easily told Mark the info about you being in recovery in private the first time he ever offered you alcohol. Mark isn't owed a backstory on why original post doesn't want to drink. Mark is still a for not accepting the first no and moving on with his life. Flatmate might even be considered an if he did take Mark aside to explain ops past, because that is not his story to tell. I'd rather be in butthole for being overprotective, than in butthole coming down on original post for no reason. Mark was embarrassed and apologized. It's the flatmate, the one that doesn't seem to grasp the extent of misbehavior of Mark. That's what amazes me the most. Right. Mark was being in butthole, but he did all he could do in the moment, which was to apologize immediately and knock it off. Serious question, when would you say it is okay to ask? I think it's just how you ask. I hope Mark really learned something. It's not okay to ask why ever. For example, if I am pregnant, I'm going to say no to a drink, but I have had a lot of early miscarriages, so I'm not always ready for people to know I'm pregnant yet. Or someone could be in the beginning stages of recovery and may be embarrassed by the whole situation. They may give in to drinking just to get the questions to stop. Or they could be on medication for a health problem that not everyone knows about and they don't want to discuss. If you say, hey, want a drink, and they say no, that's the end of the discussion. Like, say you offered me a cookie, and I said no. I have found that most people just let that go. But for some reason, when it comes to drinking, people dig in. It's annoying. Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube. And share them with your friends. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. We welcome your comments below. Another of our videos will begin shortly.